This operation for the first pilot and the second pilot is a remarkable exercise, demonstration of U.S. military courage, technology, power. I would encourage the President and the Secretary of Defense, consistent with operational security, share as much of that with the American public so that the American public can appreciate what goes into this kind of operation is more complicated than the bin Laden operation.
I imagine we'll get more details throughout the day. So this is what we know right now. Okay, on the map behind us, this is Iraq, this is Iran, here's Kuwait, this is Saudi Arabia. Karg Island, we've heard a lot about, should be right around this spot, right behind that white graphic. And this is the area of concentration where that missing pilot was found. This is the plane they were flying to. It's an F-15E Strike Eagle. It's been in service for decades. It's a great plane by all accounts. Crew of 2 on the F-15. Sometimes on the F-16, you get a crew of 1. F-15 is always 2. Meanwhile, the timeline. Officer ejects with the pilot when the jet was hit. The pilot, though, is recovered quickly, but the word does not go out that way. The officer evades capture for up to 48 hours in the mountains of Iran. He hides on an elevator ridge at an elevation of about 7,000 feet. Iran offers a reward for capture, telling the people who live in that town and the area, find this American pilot now. CIA launches a deception campaign suggesting to the Iranians that we've got them and we're taking them out by the sea. So perhaps that had a good decoy effect. Jimmy, swing on over here. Here are all the aircraft, well, not even all, but some of the aircraft that were used in this. A C-130 right here. C stands for cargo. That's a giant plane. You had a few of those in the air. You had B-1 bombers that apparently were dropping 100 2,000-pound bombs on the land and targets below. And also this Reaper drone. The Iranians have had some measure of success knocking these Reaper drones from the sky. They're unmanned, but they circle in the area and they can stay up there for 24 hours at a time and look for targets on the ground. So meanwhile, this is the map we started with. Here to my left, and General Keane now joins our coverage. General, good morning to you. I was up late on Saturday trying to read my X feed, trying to figure out if this mission was a success and whether or not this American was coming home. What were you watching in those hours this weekend, General?
Well, much the same. I think your rundown there of the operation is first rate. It gives the American people some sense of the complexity of this thing. I'd just like to examine 2 other things I think that are major contributors to success. One starts with the commander-in-chief. And there's a pattern of his decision-making here. We've seen it when he went into Syria to take down the chemical weapons that Assad used on his own people. His predecessor refused to do that. And he wasn't paralyzed by the fear of failure. He saw the opportunity and seized it. Qasem Soleimani, same thing. No president had tried to kill Qasem Soleimani. Why was that? They feared adverse consequences from Iran. The president saw the opportunity to take a killer off the board who had killed Americans and did it and acted decisively. We saw the capture of Maduro, another complex, comprehensive operation that was fraught with the possibilities of failure. But the president trusted his military in being able to mitigate all of that risk and saw the opportunity and seized it, and it succeeded. And even green lighting this war that we're starting had to do with the previous 7 presidents refusing to confront Iran, and President Trump saw the opportunity to take Iran off the board as a predator, despite the consequences that could be adverse and the risk involved in this. This decision-making deserves further examination by others than me, particularly historians, in terms of what is really happening with this president, because he understood clearly that there were consequences here in the execution of this operation that could be very adverse to the United States. No hesitation, let's go get our airmen. The other thing that's a major contributor so our audience understands and why these operations become so complex. When we're in the planning phase, the military goes through a what-if drill. What are all the opportunities the enemy has to intervene in this, from early detection, intervention on the ground, intervention in the air? Every single one of those intervention possibilities are examined. Then we look at ourselves. What can go wrong with our plan? What are all the things that can happen? Maintenance failures, other misdirection, considerable amount of problems because we're human beings and we make mistakes. All of those what-if drills I'm talking about has a contingency associated with it. If we lose an aircraft, we're not going to let the mission fail. If we lose a large aircraft like the two MC-130s that got stuck in the mud and we couldn't get them out of there, that's not going to contribute to mission failure. We have a contingency backup to do that. And the list goes on and on. So the detailed planning that takes place by operational commanders and their staff here on all of the contingencies to deal with what could possibly go wrong contributes to the complexity, but it also contributes to the success. Huge amount of credit to everybody who had their hand in this, to include the interagency effort that's involved as well. And I say again, it starts with the commander-in-chief.
Let me ask you, sir, about the next possible step. If we could pull up this map here of Iran's oil infrastructure. Of course, everybody's familiar now with the Strait of Hormuz. The president has extended the deadline for Iran to open that up fully to 8 o'clock tomorrow night. I saw this morning that Iran was saying, well, could we get a 45-day ceasefire? But at that point, are we just back to square one?
Well, first of all, what the president is trying to do is get the Iranians to voluntarily open the strait based on his use of an application of force here. It remains to be seen whether they're going to take a knee and do that. What I don't think we should do is go to a ceasefire to get it open. I mean, if we go to a ceasefire to get the Straits of Hormuz open, plus some other things in the deal, obviously Iran will claim that as a victory. Why? Because we got the United States military superpower to stop the war based on our leverage over the Straits of Hormuz. They will claim victory, and they're really good at the propaganda. The impact they will have on our Arab nations and the Israelis as a result of that will be significant, because they will use it as leverage in the future to get what they want from them. We can shut down the Straits of Hormuz anytime we want, and the Americans are not going to open it up. We can't be put in that kind of a scenario. What we need to do is keep our pedal to the metal here, so to speak. The president is trying to force their hand here. And if that doesn't take place, then we go in there and militarily open the Straits of Hormuz ourselves, and at some point transfer that to our allies and partners so they can continue to pass the ships through the straits. And we're very close to ending this anyway on our terms, Dana and Bill. Our commanders have told the president, and he's used a time frame, close to 3 weeks, and we'll be about done here in terms of what we can do realistically to take down all of Iran's offensive capability to continue to be a predator in the region. So my bias is let's continue that and end it.
Would that include their uranium capabilities?
Well, I think we have plans dealing with that uranium capability. Can't get into any discussion of it here, certainly.
Okay.
But we do have plans to deal with that, and obviously that is an issue. As of right now, we know they haven't gone back in there because we monitor that situation, obviously. And if they attempt to go back in there, we're likely going to deal with that. But I think what we would prefer to do is take it off the table completely, so we don't have to continuously reattack every time they try to recover that situation. I'm not in the decision making, but I'm certain those are some of the options that are being considered.
It'll be very interesting over the next 48 hours to watch, and we shall together. General, thank you so much. Jack Keane on a Monday morning. Thank you, sir.
Hey, it's Will Keane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Keane podcast for full episodes right now.